1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe. Okay. Oh, there we're here. This is Spin Legal. This is Tuesday night. This is 6 p.m. And you know, you're watching it either on YouTube or on Spin Legal or on Invictus Legal's web thing on LinkedIn.
On the LinkedIn.
Yep, on LinkedIn. There we go. Why could I not remember that? Okay.
Well, I had to put it in 3 different forms.
Okay, so there we go. So if you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5598 or email Angela through angela@weareinvictus.legal or myself using peter@weareinvictus.legal. And you can visit our website on weareinvictus.legal. There we go. So there we go. And the topic for today, it relates to a court decision made in the last little while, which is a justice found that mandatory lifetime reporting requirements of the Provincial Sexual Offences Registry violated Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And obviously, one of the things that brings along is a question of, with some people, is why sexual predators should have no rights. Lock them up and throw away the key.
Yeah, I mean, that is, it's a legitimate public concern, but a lot of it's based on public perceptions, and you'll go there, and of course, none of this is good. When people do these things, none of it is good. It causes damage for lifetimes, generations, stuff like that. But however, the thing is with me is I always believe that sentences and court decisions have to go with the criminal, not with the crime. And we have to look at who the person is, what their background is, what happened to them, why did they do this. Many times people are doing these sex offenses, have had the same thing done to them when they were younger. So there's a lot of things we have to look at behind that. I'm not saying they should get off scot-free. Yes, they should have a punishment, and they should be punished for it. But when you start saying, oh, let's stick them on a sex offenders registry and let's make the sex offenders registry public. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so say for instance your next door neighbor was charged with child molestation, and then they got sentenced to jail, and then they came out of jail, but they're still on the sex offenders registry, and it's public. So a landlord now can check if he's going to be looking for a place to live. Oh, he's on the sex offenders registry. I don't want him in here. An employer can check. No, I don't want to employ him. And this goes on and on and on. And this person, where is he going to go? Like, you're not going to get rid of him. He's not going to disappear. But what's going to happen is he'll commit another crime.
And we're talking outside of law here. In the political world, there are some people who believe that they should be jailed for life, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, well, if somebody's a repeat offender and they've become dangerous and they've been escalating their activities, perhaps that might be an appropriate sentence. But not all sex offenders are that way.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people, there are, as you will realize and you will accept, there's a lot of people who won't accept your viewpoint in that regard.
I know. I mean, they'll go in there and they will do it. And I feel that by doing so, we're creating a society that's, I guess it would almost be more barbaric in some ways, and not as much as understanding of why things happen, and what research could be done to help people get treatment. You know, some people can get treatment and they're fine. Others can't.
Yeah.
You know, depending on the situation.
All right. Okay, so we have a situation. This is Justice of the Ontario Court of Justice in Hamilton ruled that parts of Ontario's sex offenders registry were unconstitutional, as I said, and we're following precedent in terms of a Supreme Court of Canada decision in, I'm going to butcher this name, R versus Nadlovo,
Yeah,
right?
how to spell it.
NDHLOVU,
Okay.
right? That found that sex offender registry was too broad and therefore unconstitutional. So this is a Supreme Court of Canada decision, and the whole question about Supreme Court, the sex offender registry, is one. Clearly, it is right as it comes from the Roberts case. It's clearly one of situation right now of the Ontario legislature has got to fix the problem.
Yeah, there is issues with it, and yes, the police should have access to it. So if
Yeah,
something's happening in your neighborhood, the police should be able to check the sex offender registry, and they need to know that. But or if somebody has been mysteriously gone missing, and or if someone has been murdered, things like that, or if someone that has allegations are driving around doing things that they shouldn't be, yes, the police should have access to that and be able to respond to that. So what they need to have is specially trained police officers that could check these things and then be able to go out and use that information to find the person who might be doing this stuff.
but the key,
But if you make it public, all you're going to have is mob rules, mob justice, and it's not going to solve anything.
okay. What this seems to lead to is a situation where sometimes there are Supreme Court decisions that are objectionable or irrational, and that's why this question is here in front of us today.
Some of us would look at that as being an irrational decision. Why are they doing this? They're siding up with the sex offenders. I said, I don't think they are. I think when you're making a decision at a court level, you have to look at all the law, the whole law, not just the laws that applied at the time. You
Yeah,
have to look at the rights over time. So if somebody committed an offense when they're 25 years old, they went into prison and they were a model prisoner, came out, and they were put on the sex offender list and they were on it for 10 years and they didn't do anything, everything was fine. Should that person be on until they're 80, 90 years old? And there's questions that you need to ask.
yeah,
Okay, I can see somebody's doing this again and again and they keep repeating offenses, and there are people that will do that. Okay, but they
yeah,
make up a small minority of offenders. Those are the ones that we hear about, unfortunately, but they make up a small minority of offenders, the ones that will do
yeah.
extreme repeats. The ones that
And the whole question,
family incest and that type of thing, sexual abuse in families, like how is that going to be affected too? Because these are intergenerational often.
yeah, and the whole question about judicial reasoning, judicial logic versus how everyday people see things. There's a whole stream of thought about that, because we can start off by looking at judicial philosophy versus pragmatism, and essentially what you're looking at is that justices often adhere to specific legal philosophies or doctrines that they learnt in law school that can lead to often outcomes that contradict what popular opinion is. And remember, popular opinion on these things swings one way or another over time. And at one point you're saying, well, we need to be more liberal in how we deal with these things, and at other points you're saying bang them up for life and throw away the key. And to some extent, both of those viewpoints have a right.
Merit. They have some merit. Hey, like you look at Emil Durkheim's philosophy, where if you have the presence of crime in a community, that it actually helps unite a community in terms of various things, in their terms of punishment. But it doesn't help the person rehabilitate, nor does it help prevent other things from happening in the community. It does not have a deterrent effect.
Well, and I have to actually say that not all the time does what a justice's viewpoint go against what is seen as common decency. It doesn't always go that way.
We try to lean that way, but it's not something that, like, for example, if you had somebody who, like, there was a case in Welland where a child, like, where a fellow was in jail for abusing a 12-year-old. And then he spent time in jail, and then he was out on early release. And then he went out and he broke into a place and he very severely abused and assaulted a 3-year-old.
Mm.
So, of course, everybody's up in arms about this guy. So it's lock up for life, throw away the key, that sort of thing. Okay. Well, certainly lock him up. And then the thing is, let's look at his history. Does he do this all the time? Was it a history? If this was an ongoing thing and it's a gradually escalating crime, this guy is going to be in for a very long time. He's not going to get bail. Everybody thought he was going to get bail. He's not going to get bail.
Yeah, but again, Angela, if you say lock a person up and throw away the key, if the current law as it stands today does not permit a judge to lock a person up and throw away the key, there is nothing on heaven and earth that is going to permit that to happen.
Right, exactly. And in some ways, when you put people on a sex registry for life or in some kind of situation where they are being restricted or observed or that sort of thing, that has to be dealt with. There has to be a period of time. And this is a hard period of time to say, okay, it should be 5 years, it should be 10 years, it should be 20 years. But these things vary from case to case. That's why I say the law should apply to the criminal, not to crime.
Yeah. And again, with the things like the sex offender registry, one of the things that has been often said about that is chemical castration is one of the solutions in that particular thing. But again, it's all very well for people to talk about it in terms of their public opinion, but chemical castration, for example, is not permitted under law.
Yeah, like how are people going to be, like, some of them could be given medication that would make their sex drive zero, right? And that has happened I do know of cases where that's been done.
Yeah.
Right? And like, really, but the person never had any sex drive except for younger, and came out and he was fine.
Yeah.
He was out and he didn't do anything for a whole 5 years. He lived this quiet life, but he was hounded by people wherever he lived, so he had to keep moving. And then there's a case in Toronto where a fellow, he was found to be a child sexual offender, and he tried to come out of jail. He was fine. He got himself a job. He did a bunch of things. He was behaving. He stayed right away from children. He was fine. And then people kept catching up to him wherever he lived or wherever he worked, and they hassled him. And then he lost jobs. He lost apartments. He lost all this stuff. And then the next time they caught him, he was in a hotel room reoffending.
Yeah.
So this is why you have to strike a balance, okay? Because if they can't live anywhere, can't work anywhere, can't be anywhere, where are they going to do? They're going to reoffend, because at least there's a guarantee of 3 hots in a cot.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the questions here is about one of the answers here. One of the reasons they're giving is insulation from public opinion, because justices often have long-term appointments. They sometimes can get an appointment up to 75 years of age, and they are often shielded from political pressure or public opinion. And in fact, actually, many judges are encouraged not to listen to public opinion or the newspapers because, in fact, they don't represent the real state of law, and that judges would read law books rather than listen to public opinion.
Exactly. And this is one of the problems. Like, you have certain states down in the US that elect their judges.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems with election of judges. Okay? Where they would be more or less trying to rule on different situations on the basis of what they perceive to be public opinion.
Yeah. I used to think of myself as a fan of elected judges. And then I had a discussion, this was before I went to law school, and then I had a discussion with an American about how do you elect a judge, or how do you elect a sheriff? And it's largely about, well, the only real way you're going to elect a judge or a sheriff or something like that is either because you know them, or because you work in law enforcement, or something of that nature. And the other question about, for example, judges, is that they're often voted in America on the basis of we're a hang 'em high judge.
Yep. Maximum Mary.
Yeah, which is not necessarily the best thing you want out of a judge. You want a judge who's
necessarily good for the system. It's not necessarily good for the system. Like, I did a lot of work in criminology. I taught it for several years at a university level. And as part of doing that, I had to do a lot of research. Like, people think when you give all this tough sentences out and do all this stuff, hang them high, all that stuff, what happens is it doesn't deter others from doing the same thing, nor does it rehabilitate the individual who has done this.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is like, you'll see different systems of justice in different countries, and there has been some like the system in Norway, for example. Okay? There's people there who spend a lot of time for doing things, and even murder and stuff, but they come out after they finish serving their sentence. There's very little recidivism because they're taught skills while they are in their facility, and they're given jobs, meaningful jobs, while they're working in there, and they pay rent, pay taxes. It's like it's just like you're over here and then the rest of the community is over there, but you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So what it does when people have this, well, we have to have all these maximum sentences, and like, if you're going to commit a crime, you're not thinking at the time of what you're going to get for it. Many people think they're just not going to get caught. Okay? So they're just going to try to find different ways of not getting caught. And you go to jail, that's fine. And then you learn other ways of not getting caught the next time. So it's something that I think people, I don't know. I look at this from both a criminological point of view as well as from a legal point of view. Okay? Yeah. I don't deny people's right to have feelings and emotions and be outraged at the behavior of these people. These people are not human in many ways. Like, yeah. I just detest the idea that somebody would go out in the community and do this type of thing. But yeah, the thing is, the resolving, how are you going to resolve this? Is this going to stop other people from doing the same thing?
Yeah. Okay. There's two kind of things that I think we need to also get to grips with. There is complex legal questions at hand, which a judge is going to have to look at in relation to deciding any sentence. It's not just a case of, he did it, therefore we're going to bang him up for life, and it's going to be 50 or more years, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We don't deal with it that way. The court's not deciding on what is right, rather what is based upon, when they're sentencing an individual, they're looking at often narrow technical questions about the Constitution, what the federal statutes permit, what provincial statutes permit, what has been past decisions of this, for this particular crime. All of those sort of things go together, and that is what influences a judge to look at, If I look at the Smith case, Smith got 25 years for this crime. But the difference between Smith and the person in front of me is, when you can list a whole heap of differences. So therefore, I believe that in this instance, 18 years is an appropriate sentence. So that's the logic that a judge goes through, whereas we kind of don't think about that. Many people don't think about that. They're not looking at the complexities of the law. They're looking at how they feel.
Yeah, they're looking at feelings, but law is not based on feelings. Law is not based on your opinions, about what should happen to these people. Yeah, personally, I'd love to see them all strung up and hung upside down in a town square. but basically, that's my opinion. But I don't think the law would allow that.
Yeah. Well, and again, we're talking about the sexual offences type one. I'm very much one of almost like 2 or 3 strikes you're out for life. It's it. Life should mean life. I don't mean 25 years. I mean for the rest of your natural life. Right? Yeah, it's the way I feel about some of those ones.
Like Paul Bernardo, for example, as somebody that has come up, and he was listed as a dangerous offender.
Yeah.
The chances of him ever getting out, I think, are very slim to none.
And at the end of the day, even if the guy was 85 years of age or 90 years of age, there'd be serious objection to somebody like that coming out because of the psychological impact it would have upon life, even though at that age his chances of reoffending is slim.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where you look at it like his ex-spouse Carla Homolka. People are very rightfully upset that she was that way because she talked herself into a deal and then she got out early.
Yeah.
But she's not reoffending right now. So I don't know. It's where people have to consider all of these things.
Yeah. And one of the important things because of our system of law, the way we run our system of law, it's a system of stare decisis, which basically is following precedent. So what prior decisions have made, so the court upholds similar cases should be treated similar ways. The trouble is, what that means is, again, back to the technical, narrow understanding of that. And people members of the public don't necessarily look at narrow construction. They look at pure and simple, he committed murder, he should go away for life type thing.
Yeah, he did it.
Yeah.
So therefore, he should be punished.
But again, past decisions of this nature, and in fact, actually, probably on something like murder, we're probably more amenable to better decisions today than we would have been if you follow exactly the same on precedent. You follow decisions of 150 years ago, and you're going to, again, even in Canada, you're going to be looking at hang 'em high judge, aren't you?
Yep. We've had, there was a execution here. I think it was in the 1930s or 40s, which was the last execution here in St. Catharines. It was a person who killed a little girl. He was working the cannery, and he was hung. And there was a jail actually on Niagara Street.
Yeah,
where I actually was reading the historical part of it. It's weird.
Oh, I've seen that jail. I've seen that jail on Niagara Street. Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So what you've got to remember, and I think the big takeaway from this is that often the court is not deciding what is right, but basically they're deciding our sentences based upon narrow technical questions about Constitution, federal and provincial statutes. And they have to put all of that into, it's a complex job.
Complex job. That's why we put so much faith in our judges. And you or I were put up there. And then you have all the details of every single case, because sometimes people read in the paper, this judge let this guy off because you did this or whatever. Read the case, know the actual case. Right?
And at the
Because
end of
one of the problems that people have is that they come to conclusions because they assume that a judge just let somebody off because they did something. And then there's often the appeal because some judges do make mistakes.
yeah,
And there's an appeal, you can go up and the Crown can appeal. And if there is an error in the law or whatever. So this is something that we have. It's an adversarial system why we have that, and it's not a perfect system, but it's one that works.
well, and also the other thing that I'm going to throw in there as a curveball is that that we also know there are instances, and I'm going to cover here. There's two types of things that we have to be concerned about. One, there are innocent people that are found guilty, and two, there are guilty people that are found innocent.
Absolutely. That's why I said there's so much errors that could be. Like there's the Milgar decision. There's
Well,
yeah,
and with our system of law, it's predicated on the assumption that it is better to let a guilty person free than to jail an innocent person.
yeah, and this has happened many times. And in the U.S., where they have capital punishment, they put them in and they get killed. They get capital punishment.
And that's the logic behind why we don't have capital punishment here. That it's better to actually, that you can at least let somebody free if they're found not guilty eventually.
Yeah, and then in the US, sometimes they'll just commute a punishment to life, until they can figure it out because sometimes there is some little bit of doubt,
Yeah.
and they have to worry about that. So it's very, very difficult, you know, like when you're dealing with the public has a very unclear idea of how these things work, and they believe things work where, oh well, this guy's got a better lawyer so he can get whatever he wants. I said it's not necessarily that. Hey, who does the better argument, who has the most evidence, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on. Thank you everybody for being here. And we're trying to keep these down to half an hour in the future. So that has been an interesting little episode about why courts make decisions that don't necessarily follow how people think.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got anything further to add about that?
No, I think what the issue is when I taught criminology, there was also there's a lot of different variances when people say, "Oh, crime is going up and up," and I said, "Well, when you read about it, you also have to look at the demographics of who commits the crimes, and if
Mhm.
you're having a growing number of people within that demographic group, you're going to have more crimes."
Well, also the other question here is that the idyllic backwater that used to be Niagara in the Niagara region is no longer that idyllic backwater of 400,000 people. It's now more than 500,000 people and a lot more crowded in certain areas,
Yep.
and a lot more like Toronto than people would care to admit.
Yep, and I would love to go into a presentation about what could lead to more crime and what could reduce the crime, but a lot of this stuff has nothing to do with punishment. It has more to do with economics and how your society is set up.
Well, and economics and politics govern how we create the laws that we live by, but
Mhm.
they also, also does emotion and and feelings about
Feelings,
justice as well.
yeah, and attachments. Like right now, people are fighting against amalgamation. They don't want to lose their city's identity.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that.
yeah. All right, so there's a lot of things to take into consideration when one is looking at how one would set it up, and there's no talk here necessarily of there being any change to the law. The only change to the law that is actually being required in the Roberts case is that there's a decision that says that Christopher's law is, not that they're criticizing Christopher's law, but that when you apply the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to it, you have to look at the need for life, liberty, and the security of person aspects of it, and that has to all be considered in the boiling pot, and it's up for the Ontario Parliament to reconsider some of the definitions that are in Christopher's law.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of things. That was when Joseph Fredericks, he was going around killing young boys, and then he was put in, and then he died in prison.
Yeah. Well, and the other, as I said, the other end of that scenario could well be that you opt for 2 strikes you're out or something like that in sex offender cases, for example. Right? Because we started talking about the sex registry and how that was a breach of this individual's constitutional rights. Right. And all of that is really up for grabs, and that's something that in reality our Ontario government's got to look at over the coming months.
Yeah, exactly. They have to look over that to make sure people are treated fairly.
Yeah. All right. So just to let everybody know, this is brought to you by Angela and I. We're partners at Invictus Legal LLP. And you can call us on 905-688-5598. And Angela's email is angela@weareinvictus.legal, and mine, peter@weareinvictus.legal. And Angela's got the final words to say.
Yeah, so what you hear today is not legal advice. Whether it's something you heard today or anything else in this series, the other 106 episodes, this is not legal advice. So if you need specific legal advice, you need to contact a paralegal or a lawyer.
Yeah. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you all again this week. And, we'll come back with another topic next week.
And if you have ideas for topics, feel free to drop us a line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, many of the topics, I went today with a topic that was in the news, and I thought it was important to address that. But I've still got about a dozen or more topics that have been suggested, over time that we should discuss.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So have a great day, and we'll see you this time next week. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.